Hello and welcome back to the Scottish Crypto Show. Today's episode we are going to look at the cost of living rise and the decision by the Bank of England to increase interest rates while the European Bank decided to keep interest rates level. If you're interested in that, please like and subscribe to our videos on YouTube and follow us on Twitter at ScotsmanCrypto. As always, this video is brought to you by Luno, the wallet where you can get involved with Bitcoin, and if you sign up using the code in the description you get £10 free Bitcoin when you sign up. The cost of living in the UK is at its highest level in decades, with December CPI 5.4%. The Bank of England have confirmed they expect inflation to hit a staggering 7.2% by April. But as discussed in previous videos, this is based on a flaw method of measurement, and actually real inflation for those on low incomes is probably closer to 15%. Bank of England also announced today that a further rate hike and its second rate hike in 3 months, moving interest rates to 0.5% in a bid to curb inflation. With soaring energy prices and supply issues, what this rate hike is more likely to do is hurt those with credit card balances and mortgages and interest payments on things like cars, while also hurting those trying to buy their first homes and actually buy an asset that can appreciate over time. We also see that the government's COVID loans have resulted in over £4 billion in fraud, and that money is likely never to be recovered. £8 billion has been spent on PPE that was either bought too expensive or it's not needed and it's expired and now can't be used. This is £12 billion in wasted money. It's another example where governments run countries like they have a never-ending supply of money and not like a business. This is in the same week that the US announced that their debt has now crossed the $30 trillion mark. But while the cost of living surges out of control, energy prices are out of control as well because we're not an energy independent nation. You'd think the media would be having a field day about how incompetent our politicians are and demanding change from our government, but no. A quick search for Boris Johnson and you're inundated with headlines about having parties while the UK was in lockdown at number 10 and how Boris has no credibility and must go. I agree. I don't think the government has any credibility left and will likely be replaced in the coming weeks by someone else to replace Boris Johnson. But in my opinion, he's kind of been hung out to dry for the failures in the UK government. As a leader, you live and die by the actions of those that represent you, and this is seen with Boris. He wasn't the only one at those parties. There were many other members of Parliament and senior officials from Whitehall at those parties, but no one else is being blamed for going or attending. Some of the parties he wasn't even in attendance, so why are the people that went not on the sword like he is? The government's handling of the UK's monetary policy since the pandemic began has been diabolical. It's now having severe effects on the most vulnerable in society. £12 billion wasted on loans and PPE, while we have people struggling to afford basic food items or even heat in their homes. The government has failed, Boris has failed, but there are many more that deserve to lose their jobs over this farce. But once again, the UK media focuses on headline news, clickbait news, rather than the real issues that we need to be discussing. The media loves a scapegoat, and while I agree Boris is incompetent, he's been fine for the media to prop him up over the last few years and during the pandemic, and even herald him as a success at points during the pandemic for instigating lockdowns and bringing in furlough payments. But right now, instead of focusing on the real issues that are hurting the most vulnerable in society, the monetary policy which is out of control, taxation that's looming, energy crisis, we focus on somebody that was going to a party at number 10 while the country was in lockdown. Who cares? We want politicians that are happy to govern, that are in a position to govern, and are making policy decisions day in, day out, not in the face of media answering questions about whether they attended a party, whether they had a glass of wine or not. That's not what a politician's job is. I'm not disagreeing, I'm not saying that it was wrong that he went to those parties. However, it's not his job. Let's move on. Let's allow our politicians to govern the country. It seems as though the senior party officials want rid of Boris, which is fine. As I said, I believe he's not used for the job. However, this party narratives came from nowhere, and the parties happened over a year ago, so clearly somebody's hid this news for over a year until they want rid of Boris. Okay, let's get rid of him, move on, and let our politicians get back to actually running the country, because at the moment, the only people that are suffering is the poor, the vulnerable, and actually, to be honest, the middle classes who probably have mortgage payments and credit card payments that are going to be stung by the Bank of England's decision to increase interest rates. This continued narrative that no one saw inflation coming is ridiculous. Do a quick search online, go on Twitter, and you can see people calling that there was going to be mass inflation from early in the pandemic because of the monetary policy, yet the most senior banking officials in Europe couldn't see that this inflation crisis was going to come. All the while, the Ukraine-Russia conflict is going to cause a massive energy crisis, which could take a couple of years to resolve. But as always, the UK media is focusing on the scandal, the sleaze around Westminster, rather than the actual real issues. And politicians are too busy trying to cover up for what went on, follow inquiries, rather than actually deal with policy which will actually impact the poor. As always, like I always do, take it back to Bitcoin. This is why people choose Bitcoin. They are opting out of this system. They don't want to be part of a monetary system that relies on these people that make blunder after blunder and there's no consequences. They don't want to be part of a system that's ran by people that think they've got an endless supply of money, and actually when they print more money it only impacts the poorest in society, and those that are controlling the monetary policy get off scot-free. Bitcoin is an alternative to the financial system we currently live in, and I'm happy that I DCA in a Bitcoin every single day and I've got investments in the crypto space. If you wanted to get involved in the crypto space, like I say, download the Luna Wallet app, use the code, get £10 free Bitcoin when you sign up, and it's the cheapest and easiest way to start getting involved in the crypto space. That's all for today. Tomorrow's episode is going to be all about increasing adoption and the metaverse, with JP Morgan announcing that they reckon it's going to be an $8 trillion space in the metaverse, which is massive. So we're going to cover that tomorrow. Please like and subscribe the video and follow us on Twitter at Scotsman Crypto.